The working class is sold this idea that their home is an asset. Hey, if you're new here, my name is Sayer. This is Integrating Bitcoin. I teach you things about money that you might not know and how that's related to Bitcoin. So really this depends on your definition of what an asset. I guess my daughter has something to say too. And we might just have to deal with that for this video. Yep. Alright, so many people refer to an asset as something that just holds value, essentially. They're like, whatever happens to be, it's just an item that they deem valuable, and they call it an asset. And that is one definition. But the definition that I am referring to is an asset is something that produces cash flow. It's actually something that is bringing you value. It's not a liability. So whenever we talk about something in accounting, there's either an asset or a liability. So is it giving you money or is it taking money away from you? And that's what I'm going to be showing you through that lens of why your home is not an asset. But before we get into that, I want to mention two tax incentives, probably the only two actually that I'm aware of, for the working class. The first one is home ownership. We are incentivized by the tax system in the United States to own a home. And we are also incentivized to have children. Those are the two main things that we can get tax breaks on as a working class. So the home, you can write off your property taxes and you can write off the interest on your mortgage. And we are incentivized to have children from the tax system because we get a tax credit for each child. So these tax incentives aren't necessarily what you think they are. The housing one is incentivizing you to purchase a house, which then gets you into long-term debt and anchors you down. But that actually creates predictability and stability in the economy. So the government likes that. They want you to be in long-term debt and stuck down and working a job. And then the children tax incentive. We need kids in our government. Without people, without refreshing the people, we're not going to have a government. We're not going to have a society. So that's incentivizing people to have children. And it's not necessarily that those are bad things, it's just good to know that you are incentivized to do that by the tax system. And that is why business owners and corporations, they have much better tax breaks because they're incentivized to do that, to build these businesses, because they're actually producing a service for the economy. And they're producing a product maybe. They're producing some sort of economic value. And they might even be making jobs in their business. So they're creating something rather than just working in something. So they get more tax breaks because that's the incentive for it. I just wanted to mention that because that's potentially why we all have this idea and we get told that our primary residence is our biggest asset. And I'm going to show you why that's not true. To illustrate this, let's go back in time 5 years to 2020. Let's say we bought a single family home for $300,000. All right, and then if we fast forward to today and look back at the CAGR of the family home price, I'll explain what that is. So CAGR, or CAGR, stands for Compound Annual Growth Rate. So that's expressed in a percent of how much the price, or some people do value, of some sort of asset went up over the course of 1 year. So we're looking at the compound annual growth rate. So each year, on average, the price of this home the last 5 years went up approximately 9%. I do want to note that historically, the CAGR of the price going up for homes is only around 4%. It was just due to the pandemic and all of those issues that made the price of these go up faster. All right, so now let's take a look at CPI. CPI stands for Consumer Price Index, and that is a tool used to measure the price increases in the economy. That's also inflation, so it's an inflation measurement. And the reported official number averaged out over the last 5 years, that's why I'm saying compound annual growth rate here, is approximately 4%. Now that did fluctuate a lot. Like in 2020, it was 1.2%, but in 2022 it was 8%. So again, we're just averaging that out over the last 5 years, and we get approximately 4%. But unfortunately, it is actually known that the CPI is not a real measurement of inflation in our economy. There's other reporting agencies that do independent research, and they estimated that the true inflation over this period of time was actually approximately 8 to 10%. So I'm just putting in 9% so we can work with that number. One more factor that I wanted to bring into this is the annual maintenance costs of the home, and then also the capital expenditures. So CapEx is going to include things like just big purchases that occur occasionally throughout the lifetime of owning the home, like replacing the roof or replacing appliances like your furnace or your hot water heater. So averaged out over 5 years and factoring in those big CapEx purchases, we can say it's approximately $5,000 per year to maintain the home. All right, do you see where we're going with this yet? I'm going to throw this all into a spreadsheet and show you there because I think it'll make a lot more sense and it'll be in a better format. All right, so these are the numbers that we were showing on the whiteboard. We're starting off with a house that we purchased in 2020 for $300,000. And here are some variables that I have plugged in to adjust these formulas so we can see how it affects things. But remember, first of all, we're starting off with a price increase that was observed over these last 5 years for the housing market increase. So the compound annual growth rate for the price increase of houses went up by 9% per year the last 5 years on average. And then the CPI or inflation rate, the compound interest rate, went up 4% every year. And then I'm just putting this in as all 5 years. So remember we said $5,000 per year for maintenance roughly and CapEx costs. So that's where that number is coming from. Okay, so now we can actually look at this and see what the numbers are showing us. So we can see the nominal house price here starting off at $300,000, and then each year we're increasing by 9%. So that's going to give us this perceived gain, that's what this column's showing us, of $27,000 after we've owned that house for a year, and then another 29, and so on and so forth, until we get to the total perceived value of the home, or perceived gain, of around $123,000. And at that point, 5 years later, our house is now worth, nominally, $423,000. But if we subtract the maintenance costs, we get roughly $98,000. So, round up, we could say it's $100,000. Perceived gain over the course of 5 years. But if we adjust this for inflation, then the numbers look a little bit different. And the way this is working is we gained 9% each year on the nominal price of our house, but every year inflation was taking 4% of the value. So what we're looking at here is we're always looking in 2020 dollars. That's what this is representing. So at this last one here in 2024, $364,000 in 2020 dollar value. Hopefully that makes sense. So we can see the numbers are a little bit different, right? Our real gain when adjusted for inflation is not 27,000, it's 15,000 for the first year. And for the second year, it's not 29,000, it's almost 16, and so on and so forth, up to that. And so our total real gain when adjusted for inflation is about $65,000. And then minus our maintenance, we're now up about $40,000 worth of value. So that actually still seems pretty decent. We made a return on our investment, and at this point with these numbers, our house was an asset, right? It was making more value for us over time. Let's adjust these numbers and see what we get. So remember that the CPI or inflation rate that's reported by the Fed isn't actually truly accurate. It's cherry picking certain assets into a basket that don't include a lot of things that everyday people have to pay for that do get heavily inflated. So it skews the number. And there's been third-party agencies that do their own research, remember, and I mentioned, so we're going to plug in 9% for that. Now, of course, our perceived gain stayed the same because the price increase nominally didn't change. So now we see like, oh yeah, well, we made this much money on our house because it increased in value to $423,000. That's great. But realistically, our real gain was flat across the board because inflation was just the same as how much our house went up. Maybe that's where the value increase in our house comes from. It's a scarce asset that gets inflated nominally because of inflation. Something to think about. And on top of that, minus our expenses that we defined, we're actually negative $25,000. So when we look at this snapshot of 5 years and the nominal price of your house going up, it feels like you've made more money. It feels like the value of your house has gone up because we're seeing that number go up. But it's all just an illusion. It's actually just being inflated in price where the value of your home stayed exactly the same. Pretty crazy, right? Fiat currency has the ability to do that. It skews the perception of what you think value really is. It fakes it. I do realize that inflation isn't the only factor involved with the price of your home, but it is a big one. So when you see the price of your home going up, realize that it's not necessarily more valuable. More likely, it's that the dollar is less valuable. So it takes more dollars to equate to the same value of your home. If you aren't following me yet, what the heck are you doing? Follow me. Tomorrow I'm going to have another video that's kind of a follow-up to this one that's going to show you how you can use Bitcoin to potentially turn your house into an asset. You won't want to miss it.